Hey guys, it's William. So I hope all of you are having a terrific holiday. I think I certainly am. And I'm very excited to do another top 10 best books I read this year list. And I'm also looking forward to doing the worst right after this. So to start off, we have some honorable mentions. Well, I wish that our Christmas tree could be counted as a book because it certainly tells a lot of stories about our family. And it's just really gorgeous. I always like making Christmas trees. Whenever you set them up, just boom, you can't imagine them being any better. So anyway, our honorable mentions in books is A Sorrow Fierce and Falling by Jessica Cluess, Renegades by Marissa Meyer, and the second book in Alexander Gordon Smith's Hellraisers trilogy, Hellfighters, The Devil's Engine. Now before we begin, a heads up, I don't actually upload movie and book reviews on YouTube. I type them, and for the past 5 years I've had them on my own movie and book blogging website, Weldon Witness. And now I've started up a brand new website called williammcginnbooks.wordpress.com, and they're both still up, and I'm beginning to transition some reviews onto williammcginnbooks.wordpress.com. I'll leave links to both of them in the description. And also, sometime this year, sometime in 2020, I'm thinking that I will start uploading video reviews on YouTube. I feel like that would be a lot of fun and it would reach a broader audience. Though, at the moment, I'm still too busy to do that, and they won't be with as much quality as this video, but still, yeah. Number 10. So kicking off this list is If You Don't Have Anything Nice to Say by Layla Sales. And there are some books I've rated higher that aren't on this list. But the reason this one is just for about 96% of the book, it's golden. The other 4%, pretty bad. It was basically at the ending when there's something that just slipped through publication and I can't comprehend why. But still, despite that, for the rest of the book, this book sends all the right messages to teens and adults, to everyone, about our gruesome internet world and about the mistakes we can make and how we have to be prudent all of the time whenever we're posting about ourselves. And that oftentimes the world is just unforgiving and something should be done about that, but maybe there's no way to do so. Number 9. Now coming in at number 9 is a political comedy called Your Own Worst Enemy by Gordon Jack, an election at a high school. And you know, high school elections, I feel, they really mean a lot to the people who are running, maybe not to much else, and probably not to the press, but really, this book was a lot of fun. It was hilarious. I was in a reading slump at the time, but I was very excited to pick up this book nonetheless. It does something that in today's political climate, the world just can't do, and that is give an equitable look at each and every candidate, and all of them are likable in their own way. One of them says that he is going to make chocolate milk great again, and that really didn't have to be in there. That was a sore thumb for me. But yeah, it's not just the politics, but it's also the lives of these characters and what this election is doing to them. And all throughout, I couldn't wait to find out who was getting elected. The tension was always high. I was really nervous about whatever was going to happen next. I should really check out Gordon Jack's other book, The Boomerang Effect. Number 8. Now usually it's the movie that's based off of the book, not the book that's based off of the movie, especially not book based off of the play, but this is the first one of these books that I've ever read, and that makes it all the more special. This is the book based off of the play Dear Evan Hansen, and written by the creators of the show, Val Emick, Stephen Levinson, Benj Pasek, and Justin Paul. I am not much of a musical person, especially not a live-action musical person. Hairspray from 2007 was pretty good, though. However, this book, it spoke to me on so many levels. Yes, it is slow, but we digest Evan Hansen trying to always do the right thing. We digest a suicide I never expected, being completely unfamiliar with this story. The romance and friendship, they're all super precious and super special and super important and super relatable. And I could stare at this blue tree for the longest time. When I was reading this book, picking it up again and staring at that cover was a big gift. Number 7. And number 7 is a fantasy novel called The Last Magician by Lisa Maxwell. Most of the time, very long fantasy books aren't very good for me, especially since they often pay so much attention to their details that they forget to keep me entertained. But The Last Magician, despite being about probably 180,000 words and taking me 2 weeks to read, I was on board from the get-go, and the characters were just a blast to be with, and even though I knew of the heist coming in, which is basically the whole point of the book, there's still enough that happens as the plot goes along to keep me very invested. And honestly, it really didn't feel like I was impatient for this to end. And after I'm with a book for that long, usually that can take a toll on me, but this one really didn't. So I'm really excited to start The Devil's Thief next year sometime. Number 6. Now, the number 6 spot is going to On the Come Up by Angie Thomas, the author of The Hate U Give, which I'm sure everyone already knows by now. The Hate U Give is a legendary book and it deserves to be in every regard. I read it last year and it was my number 1 read of the year, tied with Anger is a Gift. And what On the Come Up does is it keeps up this message, not as grand but close, and it also touches upon other new themes, like a mother who has to be taken care of by her daughter every once in a while, as well as rap music. And I feel like these sorts of stories, they can only be told perfectly if they have someone who really has a history and has a real core and a heart about this message. And Angie Thomas certainly does. She was the best possible author for all of these books. And I can't wait to see what she comes up with next. Number 5. And the number 5 spot goes to Scythe by Neil Shusterman. I always called it Scythe until everyone started correcting me. I just feel like Scythe is more of a sharp way of saying it, so maybe I'll just keep that up. So I'll try not to say this book's title too often. But honestly, yes, I've started a lot of new series this year, and this one was the one that got me the most excited out of all of them. I immediately went and read the sequel, and I just finished the last book just a little while ago. And neither of them were able to hold up as good as Scythe, but still, despite that, I mean, I still really love this trilogy. This is a genius concept, and they take it every possible way that it can go. They, I mean, by Neil Shusterman. But yeah, this is a real look into the human spirit by personifying death itself, like a storm cloud that's come down from, or up, from hell and is now personified into humans, but how the world has had to try to control this, and for the first time it's now slipping, or maybe it's always slipped, but now it's really fallen off the cliff. But yeah, so much to love about this book. I really suggest picking it up. Number 4. Number 4 is a book called Retribution Rails by Aaron Bowman, maybe the best historical fiction book I've ever read, at a time where apparently the railroads were putting farmers and messengers out of jobs and putting their roads all across their farms and destroying their livestock. Aaron Bowman has a bit of a history lesson for us at the end, but yeah, a female journalist who is out and being stigmatized by everyone in her profession, as well as a very young gunslinging criminal who has to work for a gang under bribery. Like, those two are both have amazing stories to tell and both tremendously exciting and caring. Honestly, Charlotte and Reese, they are an amazing couple. I didn't read Aaron Bowman's first book in the series, Vengeance Road, though. I couldn't find it, but just there was something about Retribution Rails. It had an aura about it that just seemed right for me, and I'm glad I trusted my instincts. Number 3. And now we're down to the top 3. And I have to say, these 3 will live with me for a very long time, especially number 1 and number 2. Number 3, most likely. Number 3 is a book that was released 11 years ago called Little Brother by Cory Doctorow. And honestly, I really love techno-gizmo books, especially Otherworld by Jason Segel and Kirsten Miller, and Warcross by Murray Liu, but Little Brother did something different. It was unafraid to get confusing. It listed so many different terms. Instead of just showing us what these things did, the protagonist, Marcus Yellow, he really emphasized how it worked. And that could have turned off a lot of people, and honestly, I don't remember a single description. I just remember what happened as a result. But still, this book, it displayed a humongous amount of fear of what will happen upon getting captured, but also of the security systems that we have in place underneath us that can lead to excuses for brutality whenever something big happens. I'd call it a very big metaphor to 9/11 and the way Muslims were treated afterwards. And except this one has a rebel fighting back. And I also liked all of the racism and homophobia that was addressed in it as well. And seeing everyone trying to catch their tails as they try to trap Marcus and see how he has to navigate around, how he has to try to stop this, it was one of the best rebellion type books I've ever read. It's too bad I wasn't as impressed with the next book in the series, Homeland, but Little Brother is going to stick with me.
Number 2.
Now, taking the number 2 spot is a book called Hold My Hand by Michael Barakiva, and it's the sequel to this book called One Man Guy, which I put on my best list a few years ago. And what I said in that video was that Alexander Kadarian and Ethan Novick were the cutest couple I had read all year, and now that 8 years have gone by, I began calling it to myself the most adorable book you will ever experience. And now I say that both of these are the most adorable ever. Now, there's also a comic book I found out about called Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. And I've never put a comic book on my best list, but I guess I could tie it. Because honestly, I'd say this is the most adorable graphic novel you will ever experience. And this is one most adorable novel. But yeah, what I like about Hold My Hand primarily is that it takes a situation where a lot of people say you can't go forward with the relationship, but it brings a lot more extra layers to it. It brings Alec and Ethan's gay relationship and really intensifies it because they've been together for 6 months, which is like 3 years for a teenage couple. And I'd say it's the perfect romance book because neither side is perfect. And neither side is willing to just walk away unscathed, like a lot of romance books seem to do. And the end what made me tear up quite a bit, and a lot of this book made me tear up quite a bit. I often say movie and book quite a lot, but yeah, I would say give it a chance, even if you might be a little hesitant with the premise if you find out what it is. And I mean, Heartstopper, the expressions, the art that's so simplistic yet brilliant, all of it just, you could speed through this in about an hour and you'll want to start all over again. So yeah, I don't read many romance novels. In fact, I don't think I've ever read a book that had 2 people kissing on the cover. But these ones, they're the perfect romance. They get you really optimistic for love. They really do. And as for the number 1, well, here we go.
Number 1.
It's a book that was released way back in January of this year called Internment by Samira Ahmed. Now, I remember that last year I read Ahmed's debut, Love, Hate, and Other Filters, and wasn't impressed with it, but this one, I am so glad that I didn't skip out on it. In fact, it could now be said as one of the best books I've ever read in my lifetime and probably will forever be. Now, last year, the number 2 spot on my best list was American Heart by Laura Moriarty, and it was about a teenage white American girl who was helping a Muslim fugitive, but who didn't do anything wrong other than the fact she was Muslim, and just helped her escape from America when they made concentration camps in Nevada to hold Muslims because of the xenophobia that has now run so rampant that the government put that in place. And Internment, funnily enough, it takes place in one of these concentration camps in Nevada. I feel like you could call these 2 books a duology. But back to the point about Internment itself. I call this the most terrifying book of the year. Because being locked up and having done nothing wrong, it's the most terrifying idea imaginable, probably. And yet it's happening on a massive scale in the US right now. And honestly, this book, I knew it was going to be something special when the authorities surrounded Layla Ahmed's house and she and her parents are told they only have 10 minutes to pack and go somewhere they have never been before, with the unknown happening to them inevitably. And then Layla wanting to rebel, but her parents wanting her to keep quiet but to avoid trouble. It is a timeless and important idea, and this is the most powerful rendition of that message I think I have ever read. Because I bet that if I ever become a parent, I bet my first priority would be to make sure nothing happens to my son or daughter. And if that happened, I probably would never have been able to, actually, scratch the probably, I never would be able to forgive myself. But Layla, on the other hand, well, she doesn't have to live with that. And I'm not saying that she is in the fault for wanting to rebel, but I could really understand both sides in this. And what she ends up planning behind the backs of the guards, and a guard even helping her, and which made me hesitant, made me very worried that it was all a trick, and kept me on the edge of my seat every time he was in, as well as the friends she makes and the strategies that she comes up with. And it's also the fact that even though Layla has a friend on the outside, this book takes place entirely inside the camp, giving it the feeling of there being no escape, and us being completely uncertain what's happening on the outside, even though it's told to us. But being told and being shown is very different. But yeah, along the way, I really cared if Layla and everyone were ever going to get out of this, and what would happen to the horrible director. And so the chills I got at the end, it made me go out and get my own copy, even though I got it out of the library. And so yeah, I would say Internment, American Heart, The Hate You Give, and Anger is a Gift are four very similar novels, and they're four of the best books, I would say, in the whole world. So that's it for my list, and I have to charge my camera, and then I'm going to be doing my worst list. So hope you don't go too far, and I had a lot of fun making this. And I'm wondering, what are some books you've read that you've really loved to read this year? I hope you can share with me. So yeah, I'll see you in a bit.